Hello, folks, and welcome to the latest new video by 1960s and 70s Chronicles of a Golden Era. In this one, I'm going to ask you one of our Chronicles brain cruncher questions, the ones that really make you think and you go, "Oh, but I could say this, I could say that. I'm leaving this out, I'm leaving that out." I'm going to ask you for 5 examples, and you could probably come up with 10, 20, 100, but you got to whittle them down to, in this case, 5. Sometimes I say 10. But that's the challenge of it. It's the fun because when you finally manage to brain crunch yourself down to those 5 and you get down to 5 that you feel reasonably happy with, there's a certain satisfaction in that. But you're still thinking, oh, I'm good. This will change, and ask me again tomorrow. It's going to be different. But to be put in the spot, it's just a kind of thought experiment, and mind games, as John Lennon put it. So this one, I'm going to ask you, which 5 albums, just 5, most informed your worldview? In other words, your ideas about existence itself, life, human life, your place in it, humanity's place in it, the whole place of the universe, where it came from, what's the purpose, is there a purpose, um, where are we going, why are we here? Worldview. Which 5 albums from the golden era, 1960 to 1979, most informed your particular worldview? Because our culture, part of the social and cultural revolution that was the 1960s and 70s, our culture, especially our music, was more than just entertainment, it was educational. We got an education and a stimulation to think about the big issues. I mean, everyday issues about racism, sexism, homophobia, equality of all kind, but also these deep issues about worldview, philosophy, and the questions of existence. That was the great thing about the music of our time. It provided us with stimulation to think and analyze and come to maybe not conclusions, but directions of thinking that, to be honest with you, our school education didn't provide. It wasn't designed to provide that. But our culture did. A lot of the artists, most of the artists, I'd say, from our era, um, wrote music that addressed these issues and gave us food for thought, as the expression goes, and helped to inform and guide our own personal worldview. So I'm going to ask for 5 albums that contributed to yours. Here are my 5. Um, First of all, is a Cat Stevens album, Buddha and the Chocolate Box. Now, Cat Stevens recognizes himself, well, not recognizes, he knew at the time, obviously, but he declares now to people that during that 70s phase, let's say between Tea for the Tillerman up to Numbers, perhaps, is it so? He was writing music that was a search to establish what his worldview was and find where he was comfortable living in the world and understanding the world. Ultimately, of course, he arrived at Islam very, very devoutly, to the extent that he gave up music for a period of time. And he found his place that is comfortable. And in many ways, I envy that, in a good way, in a benign way, in a positive way, because I think we're all looking for that, finding that comfortable place. Not necessarily saying this is definitely right, but it's where I'm comfortable. It's not somewhere I've ever arrived at, but for people who have, and great heroes of mine who have, like Cat Stevens, use of Cat Stevens, George Harrison, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, and so on. They're in that place, and I think this is where I'm comfortable. I've searched and searched, and I've asked the questions, and this is where I'm comfortable. I don't feel as though I have to ask any more questions, not necessarily declaring that they know an absolute truth, but they've reached a place that's comfortable for them. My place of comfort is continuing to search. I think that's true for a great many people, especially now. But that's my place of comfort, and that's where I am. And it was informed, certainly informed by the culture of our times. And choosing 5 albums. And like I say, the first one, Buddha in the Chocolate Box. It contains stimulation to think in almost every track in it, if not every track. King of Trees addresses environmental issues. There's a track that is called Jesus, which references both Jesus and Buddha, spirituality generally, and the idea that human beings hear these messages from spiritual teachers, but as the song says, they still misunderstand them, and box them into certain narrow ways of thinking. Sun Sea 79 is about spiritual connection. It's about somebody living a rock and roll lifestyle, but falling deeply in love instantly. It's about love at first sight. It's about instant love, but it's not physical. It's not a carnal kind of love. There is something very deeply spiritual about this connection between people. It contains one of the most beautiful lines of any song that I know, which goes like this: 1,000 hours I looked in her eyes, but I still don't know what color they are. This is a connection that's beyond the physical. But it's they say the eyes are the windows of the soul. 1,000 hours. Now, if you've been in love with someone, in a deep relationship with someone, we all know what that means. You're not seeing the eyes. You're not seeing any the physical part of the person. There's a connection there, which is not physical. It's emotional, and for me, I'd say spiritual. And that whole album contains references that stimulate that kind of thought. Next one, Jesus Christ Superstar, for the reason, and I've described this before in another video, that Jesus Christ Superstar describes the story of Jesus at a certain part of the story of Jesus, the crucial part, I guess, from an entirely and only human perspective. It's about the experiences of human beings, central figure being Jesus, of course, and all the people around them, and the decisions that they have to make within an unusual set of circumstances and at a certain time in a certain setting. And the central character, Jesus, ultimately having to make a decision, soul searching decision, painful decision that reduces them to tears and to pleading, as it would you and me. In any kind of similar circumstances, you have to make this moral decision between an entirely altruistic decision to give up everything, and in the case of the character of Jesus, to be humiliated publicly, beaten, tortured, and put to death for or give up everything you've taught, give up all of your principles, give up this new idea that you're trying to pass on to humanity. If you choose to live, and Jesus could have done, he only has to say, I renounce. I'm just pulling a fast one here. I'm joking. To save his own life and to save himself from suffering, he would have walked. He would have been let go. They would have walked away and saved himself that. If he did not, if he refused to give up the ideas that he was trying to impart to humanity, he would have lived a bit longer, but his ideas would have died. Not only died, they would have been humiliated in the future. Anybody who came up with the same ideas of love your neighbor and forgive, 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 and blessed are the peacemakers, and all those beautiful, wonderful ideas and principles to embrace everybody. You have no enemies. Everybody is one humanity. Anybody who came up with those ideas after Jesus, if he had renounced them, would have been condemned and mocked. Ah, yeah, they've been said before. Once it was put to the test, would you die for that? No. The last guy who said that walked away, gave them all up. Jesus knew that. So he had to surrender his own life to pain and torture and death and humiliation publicly to maintain his principles. And the story is entirely human. There are no miracles. It's it puts you into the psyche of what could you have done that? Could I have? Could you have? And you have to think, no, I don't think so. Not when all I had to do was say no and walk away and live a while longer, um, or be horribly tortured and killed. Um, it is deeply, deeply moving on a human level. On a human level, miracles don't come into this. It's human. And that album was deeply, deeply inspiring to me on a spiritual level as well. A human story, but it told the story of how human beings have to make emotional decisions. They have to make decisions that where ideas, abstract thinking, become more important than anything physical, anything material, including your own life. Very, very deeply moving and inspiring album. Next one is Going for the One. Yes, and many Yes albums are spiritual, abstract, a bit surreal. They get you thinking. They get you thinking beyond the material again and into the spiritual, and asking questions about reality. Is materialism all there is, or the very fact that we have the ability to think beyond materialism, to think in the abstract, and doesn't that suggest that there is more than just the material? The album Going for the One lyrically is much more compact, much more accessible. It still addresses these issues, but in a way that is more accessible. It talks about the human side of things, it talks about spiritual considerations, looking beyond the material, but in ways that are more accessible than previous Yes albums. A bit too lyrically abstract, a bit too lyrically surreal in many places. Going for the One really reins that in and makes it accessible. The Wondrous Stories. It's a spiritual song. As he spoke, my spirit climbed into the sky. It's about being inspired by spiritual influences. But the rest of the album too has that inspiration, that influence to it. Next one is the first T-Rex album, the album called T-Rex, before glam rock, but just after folk rock of Tyrannosaurus Rex. It is full of spiritual references and spiritual influences, small little short songs, but with beautiful lines that get into the human psyche, get into the human, I'll say again, soul and human emotion. The Time of Love Is Now. It's my favorite T-Rex song. It's short and very simple. It's a folk rock song, and even this title itself, "The Time of Love Is Now," light up your face with all the love within you. That's the kind of theme running through the song. It's a short song, but rejoice, be joyful, just for having the ability to love and being aware of the emotion of love. There is much of the same kind of spiritual, emotional inspiration within that album. That's one of them. The next one, which should come as no surprise, I'm a massive George Harrison fan. And George Harrison is the single most influential human being in my life. Um, The album is living in the material world. And for someone who, ever since he was at primary school, myself, um, was never religious. I wasn't a religious family. My schools didn't push religion at all, hardly token gestures, even at primary school. But I was always fascinated by it. You know, what is going on there? And as I got older, got nothing as no religion at school. Nothing should have. It's on the curriculum, but we didn't get it at my high school. Um, but my music supplied it. And so, 19, what would it be, 14, 15, when I got living in the material world. And I listened to the track and living material. And again, I'm saying, and the material, yeah, we're living in the material world. Like there's another one. I don't know. I asked my brother, a few years older than me, I don't know where he got his information from. He kind of just had these things occasionally. And he said, oh, yeah, this is the Hindu religion. They believe that their real existence is non-material. It's, you know, this is a delusion. I said, oh, really? And that stimulated my interest and just wanted me to learn more. And it's responsible for being the geek that I am today because I studied it academically and studied it, researched it, and it's been part of my life, not just because of that track or album. Like I said, been interested in it my whole life. And that would be my fifth choice. I'll give you them again. So it's Put in the Chocolate Box, Cat Stevens, Yusuf Cat Stevens, Jesus Christ Superstar, Going for the One, yes. The first T-Rex album, and Living in the Material World, George Harrison. They, more than any other albums, although there were many songs, many albums that inform my worldview. Mine personally, it doesn't mean to say that it has to be yours. Yours is different. 5 albums, 5 only, from 60 to 79, most involved your worldview and how you see life, how you consider reality, existence itself. Me poster is rebelling. But anyway, I'm going to ask you that question. I'll leave you with this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Please leave comments. And for now, it's nice to be back making new video. Great to see you again, and I will see you again next time.